Top 5 favourite Doctor Who debut seasons. Hello and welcome to this week's video. This week I thought I'd do... I was initially thinking about doing a top 10, but I think we'll narrow it to a top 5. Not least because I kind of realised I didn't actually like many of the many of the debut seasons for a Doctor. Some of them aren't really among my favourites, but I think a top 5 is more than credible, and it's always interesting to kind of compare what the first season for a new Doctor is like. Now, in 5th place, I would have to put season 1, the very first season of Doctor Who, the very first season of William Hartnell as the very first Doctor. Season 1 is, it's a very solid opening season. I admit I've been having a bit of a struggle with the Hartnell era of late, but I have loved it in the past. And it's hard to argue with many of the positive things about the season. William Hartnell himself, of course, is fantastic as the first Doctor, the very first Doctor, as are William Russell and Jacqueline Hill as Ian and Barbara. There are many, many atmospheric and imaginative stories. The very first story, the Daleks, of course, without which there would be no Doctor Who today. And even some stories I think are kind of underrated. I kind of like The Reign of Terror. That story doesn't seem to get a lot of press, even in regards to the historicals. I think The Reign of Terror is pretty entertaining and pretty atmospheric. So I like that story quite a lot. Overall, although season 1 is not one of my absolute favourite seasons, it's a very solid debut season, both for William Hartnell's Doctor and for Doctor Who as a whole. 4th place, I'd have to go with season 4, I think. Now, season 4 has always been, of course, it's the debut season of the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. Season 4 has always been a very difficult one to judge because we basically don't have one complete story in its original form. But of course, over the last 10 years, we've had a lot filled in with animation. We've had Power completely done, we've had Macra Terror completely done, Faceless Ones completely done, Moonbase filled in with the 2 missing episodes being animated. And generally speaking, it's made the season come to life and made me able to actually form an opinion on it, for starters. So I can't say higher in my estimation because I didn't really know how to estimate it, really, based on the scant evidence that we had. Now, I can't put this any higher at the moment because I still haven't seen Evil of the Daleks. Obviously, that's coming out in a couple of weeks. That will be interesting, and there's still a couple of others that I don't know much about, like the Smugglers and the Highlanders. Hopefully we'll get the whole season animated in a few years, and at that point maybe even then again the Smuggler doesn't really count because it's Hartnell, but maybe the season will go even higher in my estimation. But at the moment I'm really, really liking season 4. 3rd place, I'd have to go with Series 5, New Who. The first season, of course, of Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor. It's not much of a shock. I love Series 5. The Smithy era is by far my favourite of New Who. And Series 5 is by far my favourite season of New Who, not just the first season of a Doctor from New Who. I think Series 5 is a really, really, really strong and really entertaining season. Yeah, there's a couple of duffers. We could all live without Victory of the Daleks. And the Silurian one's a bit iffy as well. Gee, I wonder who wrote that. But for the most part, it's really, really solid opening season. I mean, great Doctor, great companions, especially Amy. Love Karen Gillan, big fan. And stuff like The 11th Hour and Time of Angels 2-parter. Even stuff like Vampires of Venice, which seems to be very underrated. I don't understand why people don't like Vampires of Venice. I think that's a really fun episode. Vincent and the Doctor, the finale. I like the whole atmosphere. I like the regulars. Yeah, Series 5 is number 3. In second place, what I think is the second best debut season for a Doctor. Season 22. Colin Baker's first full season, of course, from 1985. Season 22 comes in for a lot of stick, most of it misguided and for all the wrong reasons, and I think it's a really, really solid season. It's definitely in my top 10 favourites, as is Series 5, actually. The other two probably aren't as yet, though Season 4 may get there. But Season 22 is definitely in my top 10 favourite seasons of all time, so it makes sense to put it at number 2 here. Again, Colin Baker gets off to a crackerjack start this season. Love his Doctor this season. Perry's great, and some of the stories absolutely fantastic. Attack of the Cybermen, one of my absolute favourite stories. Two Doctors is brilliant. Revelation's brilliant. Really enjoy Mark of the Rani and Vengeance on Varos. And I just like the whole feel again. I like the whole feel and the atmosphere and just the stylistic nature of season 22. I think it's a real shame that we didn't get at least another season in this kind of gritty, darkly comic, more adult style. I think that's a shame, because I think season 22 is one of the most underrated and one of the most distinctive seasons in the programme's history. So that leads us on to number 1. My personal favourite debut season for a Doctor. I think most of you could probably predict what it's going to be. It is, of course, season 7. The debut season of Jon Pertwee as the third Doctor. And season 7, in a way, it's a bit like season 22 because it's a very different style to pretty much any other season. Season 7, it's completely set on Earth. It's very adult. It's very gritty. It's very real. It's very military. It's very conspiracy and X-Files-y. And it's just absolute top stuff. I mean, Jon Pertwee is absolutely cracking. He hits the ground running in Spearhead from Space. There's no settling in period for him. He's magnetic and brilliant to watch from moment one. Liz is great, very underrated, and of course you have Nicholas Courtney. Absolutely perfect and iconic as the Brigadier throughout the whole of the season. Season 7, again, as with Season 22 and Series 5, one of my top 10 favourite seasons of Doctor Who of all time. And it is very, very easily my favourite debut season for a Doctor of all time.